Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim Kelly along with Justin Godsey. This is day 3 of the MLB 30 Clubs and 30 Recap special. Today we are on to the Milwaukee Brewers, who last year went 83-79. Ron Roenicke returns for his 3rd season under the helm in Milwaukee. And Justin, in this offseason, the Brewers are not a team that made a bunch of moves. Tom Gorzolani and Mike Gonzalez they picked up to help add some depth in the later innings of that bullpen. Those were 2 nice moves. And they designated Nigel Morgan for assignment, ultimately released him. He's now playing in China. So they get rid of Tony Plush, who for 1 year was a spark for that team, and other than that, pretty much did not work out there. So he's gone, and the Brewers head into a season this year where there are a lot of questions. They went 83-79, but if you remember, they made a late charge for that second wild card spot, or they very well could have gone 75-85, 76-84, or 76-86. So it wasn't necessarily as good a season as the record indicates. But what did you think about their off season?
They lost more than what they gained this offseason. They don't have Francisco Rodriguez anymore. He's still a free agency, and I understand why teams have not gone after him, so we haven't been getting a lot of headlines from him. It's more due to what he has done off the field with a lot of, the allegations of hitting, family members and everything. That's just a small touch of that. They also, like you said, Tony Plush, and you know what, to be honest with you, I like Nigel Morgan. He's going to be off trying to, work on hitting mechanics over there in Japan or China, whatever team he signed. But you know what? A lot of depth has been lost to this team.
Yeah, this is not a team that you talk about having a deep bench at all. I mean, we previewed the Arizona Diamondbacks the other day, the team that might have the deepest bench in the entire MLB. And then you go to the Brewers, who are a team who, to begin with, they don't have a bad lineup, but it's not like their lineup blows you away. They have already lost Corey Hart for, at the very least, the first 3 weeks of the regular season. And Ryan Braun, there's still whispers about potential suspensions for him with this most recent list of names coming out in the Miami drug lab raid. So it's concerning the lack of depth that is on this Brewers team. There's a lot of questions. Let's get into the lineup first. Beginning at your catcher, your starting catcher is going to be Jonathan Lucroy. Lucroy last year in 96 games hit .320 with 12 home runs and 58 RBIs. So Lucroy actually had a very good season last year for the Brewers. Prior to that, in 136 games the year before, which might be a little bit more telling, hit .265 with 12 home runs, 59 RBIs. So I would expect out of Lucroy that you're going to get about 15 to 16 home runs, or 15 to 20 home runs, I should say, and an average around .280. I'd be very surprised if he hit as high as he did last year, Justin.
What you see, what you get from last season for Jonathan Lucroy was also his health issues last year. That's why also they got George Kataris, who's no longer with the team, traded him away to the Oakland Athletics, and they got I think they actually got a catcher back as well, who is currently the backup for Milwaukee, which is Martin Maldonado. But Jonathan Lucroy is actually a really solid catcher. Fantasy-wise, he's not going to wow you with a lot of fantasy points each week, but Jonathan Lucroy will give you a solid average as we saw last season, batted .320. The home runs, you're going to see what you're going to get out of him. You're going to see a solid 12 home run season. On a good year, he could possibly wow you with maybe 15, maybe even 20 home runs. We just don't know. But I think on a good season, he can actually hit probably about 15 home runs.
Yeah, he's still only 26 years old. He's one of the better young hitting catchers that they have in the game. So it's hard to tell if last year was just kind of a fluke or if he's just getting better. We'll have to see. You mentioned his backup, Martin Maldonado. Last year, he was with the Brewers as well, and one of the reasons they were able to get rid of George Kataris. Last year, Maldonado in 78 games hit .266, 8 home runs, and 30 RBIs. So he certainly proved himself as a very good backup for Jonathan Lucroy in this lineup. Now, looking over to first base, that's where the questions really begin, because Corey Hart is going to be the first baseman, but he is out for the first couple weeks of the season. He had surgery in middle of January, and they said 3 to 4 months. So we're going to have to see exactly when he comes back. My guess is that he comes back closer to May. So that shuffles things around in the infield. A lot of reports now saying that Alex Gonzalez, the veteran shortstop, could very well end up playing over at first base this season. Gonzalez has always given a very good glove. He's one of the best fielding shortstops out of the last 15 to 20 years. He's been around the MLB, and it wasn't that long ago that he hit 23 home run or 15 home runs with the Braves. So he isn't that far removed from success. I don't think that this is a bad idea to have Alex Gonzalez hold things over until you are able to get Corey Hart back.
Alex Gonzalez, he's going to be starting over at first base to start off the season. Tim, you pretty much covered a very good analysis on Corey Hart there, but he's going to be out due to an injury. He's going to be out till April or even May. Alex Gonzalez is also a concern. You guys are feeling like, why is he such a concern? Because if you guys remember last year, Alex Gonzalez tore his ACL, and it's still up in the air if he's going to be 100% entering the season. I know he's not going to be playing in a big portion of the spring training games, but Alex Gonzalez starting over the season at first base could be a big question. As if he's 100% healthy, that's completely great for the team because that's what they need. They really need a backup due to the lack of depth in the infield for the team. But I think Alex Gonzalez could work out really well over at first base, as well as he can also play around the diamond and could add depth, to Ricky Weeks, Gene Segura, and also Ramos Ramirez.
Yeah, he's not only going to be big at first base, but this team does not have a lot of depth. He's going to be the main guy they use off the bench, whether it's at first, whether if it's at second for Ricky Weeks, at short for Segura. They are going to need help in this infield, and Alex Gonzalez is one of the people that will make or break whether this Brewers team can have success, because if he is not healthy, it sets a tone for a very weak bench. It sets a tone that you don't have a backup for Corey Hart, and you're going to have to try and rush him back. So certainly Alex Gonzalez, to me, he might very well be the X factor on this team. As stupid as that sounds, I think Alex Gonzalez is going to hold a very big value to this team because when he's healthy, he can still provide a very good bat to this team and have very good success. When he's not, then it's a completely different story. The Brewers bench is going to struggle. Now, at second base, we're looking at Ricky Weeks, a guy who a few years ago I thought was going to be the best second baseman in the game. The average has just not been there the last couple seasons, and especially last year when he hit 230. Still had 21 home runs and 63 RBIs, but he needs to get his average back up to around 270. Last year and in 2010, he struck out a ridiculous amount of times for a second baseman, and that's the problem with Ricky Weeks. He will give you that power, he will give you a decent amount of RBIs, but he's going to strike out a ton, and he's also going to not give you a great average or a great on-base percentage, and they're going to need him to improve a little bit. I think that if I'm the Brewers, I'd rather see Ricky Weeks this year hit 270 with 15 to 17 home runs and cut down on the strikeouts, keep that average up. I think that's ultimately what would be best for this Brewers team.
I was really disappointed with the way how Ricky Weeks played last year because, like you said, his average in just the big month of the season just went down so low that I thought that Ricky Weeks was going to go into a big slump. It did a little bit, but it wasn't as big as I thought it would be. But Ricky Weeks needs to come back into the season, to reconnect the dots and everything, get back to his his all-star form, get back to his 20 home run year form, and that's what the Brewers need. If Brian Braun, in case does get suspended out of nowhere from the steroid allegations, Ricky Weeks needs to be one of those main guys on the team, including Alex Gonzalez, to bring that power back to the lineup, along with the Ramos Ramirez, who still does have a lot of pop. But Ricky Weeks is going to be one of the good guys to watch this season for the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And then looking over at shortstop, you have Gene Segura, who last year with the team in his time in the MLB, it was only 44 games with the Brewers, was also played one game with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Obviously came over in the Zach Greinke deal. In 44 games last year, hit 264, 0 home runs, 14 RBIs, stole 7 bases and 8 opportunities. So what I got out of the limited time, he's not going to give you a ton of pop, and you'd like to see the average go up. But here's a guy who can get you some RBIs, he can play small ball, and he is going to be a threat on the base paths. In the minor leagues last year, he stole 37 bases, and that's kind of crucial to remember because he played a decent amount of the season in the MLB. He played almost a quarter of the season in the MLB last year, so it isn't like he spent the whole year in the minors. He stole 37 bases, hit 304, so what I'm expecting is an average around 285, 290 this year for Gene Segura, and about 30 stolen bases. I think this is a very talented young player that the Brewers were able to get back in the Zach Greinke deal.
Yeah, Gene, I followed him throughout his minor league career with the LA Angels, being with the Salt Leagues and everything. He came over to the Milwaukee Brewers. It should have been a flip-flop right now. If Corey Hart was 100% healthy, he would have been playing at first base, but if going over at the shortstop position with Alex Gonzalez, he would have been named shortstop, but with the injury going out, that really meant that Gonzalez was going to be going over and playing first, and the Brewers have pretty much no other option. Newly acquired Gene Segura, who has really impressed me with the Brewers and also in the Brewers' farm system last year. Segura will not give you a lot of pop. He will not get you, on an average, on a shortstop, about 13 home runs or something, just throw a number out. He's not going to give you that. The highest he's ever gotten in his career in a full season was down when he was playing for the Los Angeles Angels, and he got 10 home runs this season. But this is a guy, a threat on the base path, will get you a nice high average. 258 last year in the 45 games, really impressed. In a full season, we'll have to see what he can do. Hopefully that he can maintain a 250 average and even go above and beyond. So, the future is bright for Gene Segura with the Brewers.
All right, Justin, next we're going to look over at third base, and that is where we see Aramis Ramirez, the veteran third baseman, in his second season with the Milwaukee Brewers this year. Last year had a pretty solid season. As usual, as long as he can stay healthy, he has very productive numbers. In 149 games last year, hit 300 with 27 home runs, 105 RBIs. And I think a lot of people forget how productive Aramis Ramirez is when he is in that lineup. He's getting a little up there in age now, 34 years old, but he's still extremely productive when he's able to stay healthy.
Aramis Ramirez will give you those home runs. I mean, look at last year, 27 home runs, 105 RBIs, and had a really great average last year for a third baseman, batted 300 last year. That's the type of production that this Milwaukee Brewers team needs from Aramis Ramirez, because like I said, the lack of depth, and they just need more power in this lineup, and that's what you're going to get out of Aramis Ramirez.
Yeah, I mean, they've never been able to replace the power that they lost with Prince Fielder, at least not yet, but Aramis Ramirez helped to lessen that blow. If Ryan Braun were to be suspended, if Corey Hart is out longer than they expect, Aramis Ramirez is going to be expected to somewhat carry this lineup early on, and he needs to carry the load of this team and have success early on. Backing him up, and the main utility man in the infield is Taylor Green, who last year in 58 games for the Brew Crew hit 184 with 3 home runs, 14 RBIs. It was only 100 at-bats, so it's tough to tell exactly how bad that was. It doesn't look good, but guys are streaky. It's not an easy thing to come off the bench, and that's why it's hard to find guys who are consistently good off of the bench. My guess is that you'll see the numbers improve this year. They're not going to be great. I don't think that this is a super utility guy or anything along those lines, but I think Taylor Green does improve. Now, looking out to left field is where we have one-time NL MVP, runner-up for the MVP last year, Ryan Braun, and I wish we could just talk about how great of a player Ryan Braun has ultimately turned into. Last year, hit 319, a career-high 41 home runs, 112 RBIs, stole 30 bases. He very well might be the best overall player in the game right now. You give credit to Mike Trout, you give credit to other players, but statistically, Ryan Braun may be the best player in the game. Unfortunately, it's probably not likely that he's done this without some genetic experiments going on inside his body with some performance-enhancing drugs. And look, if you're a Brewers fan and you truly don't believe that he did something, then don't believe it and just turn this video off now. But I'm sorry, the evidence piles up too far on the other side for me to believe that Ryan Braun hasn't cheated for the last few seasons.
I'm really disappointed with Ryan Braun. I mean, a lot of Brewers fans could possibly agree with me here as well. But when you take steroids, you should seriously... With the way that Ryan Braun, this is going to, more than likely, if he is going to be suspended, this is his second accusation, which is going to lead up to a 100-game suspension. And then if he gets somewhere down the line, gets investigated for a third one and his name's on a paper or something, or he took steroids, he's going to be leaving the game indefinitely until MLB can actually sit down with him and talk about it. But, Ryan Braun, Tim, I do agree with you. If he is, if it was just that one time, it was a bump in the road for him. But when you're looking at him like as a player, like personally, one of the best MLB players that Major League Baseball has seen in recent years. 41 home runs, 112 RBIs last year with a solid 319 average. That's phenomenal for Ryan Braun.
Yeah, and he's still only 29 years old. He has put together a great career, great overall player, fun to watch, has one of the nicest power swings I've ever seen, but it's extremely disappointing to continue to see his name come up with performance-enhancing drugs. Whether he did it, maybe he didn't do it, maybe I'm just completely wrong, and if you think that, you're perfectly entitled to your opinion. Backing him up is Norichika Aoki, and he will be the main backup in left field, but he will also be starting in right field. So Aoki, last year in 151 games, hit 288, 10 home runs, 50 RBIs. He kind of came out of nowhere and had a pretty solid season for the Brewers last year in his first season in America. I liked what he did He has said he won't compete in the World Baseball Classic because he wants to focus on this Brewers season. So Justin, what do you think about Aoki?
Aoki is a really great outfield. He's a great up-and-coming player in Major League Baseball because when you look at the production that he did last year, 10 home runs, 50 RBIs, and batted .288, that is very good. But when you look at the Brewers' depth, they really need to go out there and hit that free agent market and add depth to this outfield because you know what? All that they have is Ryan Braun. They got, Carlos Gomes, and they also got Aoki, and that's it. They really got to look down into their prospects up in the minor leagues and possibly go out and hit the free agent market. But Aoki is a really great and productive bat that this Brewers team really needs. He's dangerous on the base path. He kind of reminds me of a Carlos Gomes, to be honest with you, because he has a great bat, great speed on the base path, and Aoki is going to be a really great player for the Milwaukee Brewers once the season progresses.
Yeah, he has, and you're right. If there's ever a team that needed someone to just kind of come out of nowhere in spring training and step up and be a legitimate fourth outfielder, it would be the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm sure they've invited enough people to camp to try and find that guy, and we'll ultimately see if that does happen. Corey Hart is listed as the backup out there, but again, not only is he scheduled to play first, he's not even going to be playing the first few weeks, so the Brewers certainly have some depth problems, and that's kind of the theme of this entire team. Starting in center, who Justin alluded to, is Carlos Gomez, who last year in 137 games hit .260, 19 home runs, and 51 RBIs. He's kind of actually developed quite a bit of power. He was once the main piece in the Johan Santana trade. And the one thing that I still like about him, that he's remained consistent, even when he hasn't been a great hitter, is that he will steal you a very good amount of bases, has the capability of stealing you 35-plus bases, and he's one of my favorite players to watch in the field as well. He's a very good fielder. He just has never been consistent with the bat. Last year he put together a pretty good season with the bat, but in the past he hasn't been as consistent with the bat, and that's one thing that we need to see happen this year for Carlos Gomez.
That's what you want. You got to have the consistency for Carlos Gomez, because when you looked at last year, in the beginning of last year, this guy was phenomenal. This guy hit, I think, a walk-off home run in the first game for the Milwaukee Brewers and a walk-off against the Cincinnati Reds, I'm pretty sure. But Carlos Gomez is a phenomenal player, really great on the base path, 37 stolen bases last year, very dominant, and he has developed some good power there also. 19 home runs, a phenomenal season last year, but you know what? He's got to maintain the consistency throughout the entire season. That's going to be the biggest play for Carlos Gomez this year.
Now, looking over to their starting rotation, they have a solid anchor at the top of that rotation, and that is Yovani Gallardo. Last year, Gallardo went to a 16-9 record with a 3.66 ERA. The one thing that I'd like to see, went over 200 innings. That's a very good thing to have out of your ace. I want to see that ERA come down. I feel like this is a year where he can get the ERA down to more like a 3.40 type area, somewhere around there, still pitch over 200 innings, and maybe get closer to 17 or 18 wins. He will be pitching for Mexico in the World Baseball Classic. And again, pitching those extra games, these players take this very seriously, except the ones from America. They take this very seriously and they want to win. So it's almost like adding a couple more weeks onto your pitching arm that don't go into your stats. So a lot of these guys that pitch in the World Baseball Classic, pitchers especially, but even hitters, it will affect them down the stretch for these teams because they will have more miles on their arm than they normally do down the stretch. But I expect a pretty solid season out of Gallardo.
I also, too. I think he's going to be very close into the running for the National League Cy Young. That's one of the players I have in my mix for the NL Cy Young, because when you looked at last year, his ERA was high a little bit, but he got you those 204 innings, 16-9 record, and struck out 204. Those are some big numbers, but that ERA needs to go down a little bit, to what you said, 340 to 330. And I think that Giovanni Gallardo does have the pieces to, bring that ERA down, though. But going over to the World Baseball Classic, it's good. It's extra games that's going to be really helpful for these guys down the stretch, because you know what, you're going off and facing other teams, and you're getting, because Major League Baseball players are playing in the World Baseball Classic, so it's good practice before the season for these players, to get loose, get ready for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think a lot of players you're going to see have hot starts at playing this because they'll come back and they'll already be in a groove. It'll be like they played a couple weeks in the season, so they'll have some of the early jitters out. But down the stretch in September and even October for some of these guys, I think that you'll see some of their bodies break down a little bit more than you normally do. At the number 2 spot, Marco Estrada will be holding that down for the Brewers. Estrada last year, while he went 5-7, posted a 3.64 ERA through 138 innings, and that was actually a decent amount of innings because he began the season out of the bullpen, pitched 29 total games, 23 games in which he started, and I think if you project this out to a full season, Estrada is somewhere, he's likely to have about a 3.75, 3.80 ERA and pitch close to 180 innings, and he's probably not a number 2 starter on a playoff team. That's my feeling about Estrada, but he will give you solid innings and he's a solid pitcher, so I'm not going to take away from Estrada. Just, again, they don't have great depth.
I agree. I mean, this team lost, Zach Greinke. He's filling in a big role for Zach Greinke when he was traded. So Marco Estrada transferred from the bullpen over to the pitching rotation. But, Marco Estrada will get you the innings that you need. And you know what? He can go out there when it's his turn to pitch and give, 5 or 6 innings a game. And that's what the Brewers need out of their pitching. But, Marco Estrada could be somebody you really want to watch out for this season. I'm not saying this would be a Cy Young caliber. No, he's far from it. But, he will be kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah, he certainly will be because he kind of came out of nowhere and surprised people last year after picking up for Zach Greinke, and it'll be interesting to see if he can continue to pitch the way that he did last year. Willie Peralta is slated to be the number 3 starter for the Brewers last year. Only made 6 total starts, went 2-1 with a 2.48 ERA. He's one of their top prospects. He's 23 years old. Should have a bright future, and you saw why last year. Now, late in the season, he was shut down last year because of soreness in his biceps, and ultimately, if they were really in contention, he probably wouldn't have been shut down. But he was shut down late last year. That's certainly a concern when you need to throw the ball as much as a pitcher does. But 2-1 with a 2.48 ERA. He started off strong. That's only in 29 total innings. And made 5 starts, 6 total appearances. I like Willie Peralta. I think he is a pitcher to watch out for over the next few years. I don't know if he's going to be a all-star type pitcher, but I think he will be a solid number 2 or 3 pitcher. And then Justin, at number 4, we got Mike Fears, who last year in 23 total games, 22 starts, went 9-10 with a 3.74 ERA, 127 total innings. I think what I get out of these first 4 starters is you have a lot of guys who are right around that 3.60, 3.70 ERA total. They need someone to step up and truly be an ace, and I think that it will be Giovanni Gallardo, but if someone else stepped up and had a 3.40 ERA, that would be big for this team.
No doubt. I think it's still early in the well, it's getting close to spring training as it's coming up here very, very soon. But I still think the Brewers still have some spending money to go out there. And there are still pitchers out there on the free agent market. You got Kyle Loesch, but some people are still pushing in a way that Kyle Loesch is going to go somewhere else. But you know what? I think the Brewers could possibly still be hitting that free agent market and looking for a pitching this late in the offseason. But when you look at with Willie Peralta and Mike Fears, I think Fears is solid at where he is right now. He's going to be a solid number 3 pitcher. And then you got Willie Peralta, who I think you guys could really look out for National League Rookie of the Year, because this guy has this has great strength. This guy can reach up to the 100 miles an hour, but on a good day, can hit up in the 90s, and that's what the Brewers obviously really do need right now. But Willie Peralta is a great up-and-coming player. He was with the National Sound last year, the AAA affiliate of the Milwaukee Brewers. He was a 7-11 with a 4.66 ERA. But I also have to say that probably also has to do, with the discomfort when he was shut down last year, because I just hope that this Brewers team just does not rush him that fast into the major league level. I think it's still a smart way, to put him down the minor leagues for a little bit while longer. Develop, getting the use of facing off against, major league caliber players at the AAA level for Willie Peralta, and then you could probably just end up giving the number 6 or the number 3 hole, or the number 3 hole over to Chris Narveson, who's going to be competing for a role this upcoming spring.
Yeah, and that segues perfectly into that final spot. You're talking about a competition for the number 5 spot between the veteran Chris Narveson and then Mark Rogers, who's a little bit younger. Mark Rogers, 26 years old. Last year, he went 3-1 with a 3.92 ERA in 7 total starts. Chris Narveson, who's been with the Brewers for a few seasons now, went 1-1 last year in 2 games with a 7 ERA. That doesn't really tell you much, but the year before that was 11-8 with a 4.45 ERA. Either way, it's your number 5 starter. You're not going to be talking about a great starter. Justin brought up the idea of potentially using both of them and then sticking him down in the minor leagues. I think either way, Mark Rogers, give him the opportunity, because if he can get close to around that 4 ERA, that's better than the 4.30 and 4.40 that Chris Narveson has been giving you. Now, looking to their bullpen is where they really strengthen things by adding both Mike Gonzalez and Tom Gorzolani this offseason, both of whom will be the setup man. Gorzolani last year with the Washington Nationals really figured things out. Formerly was a starter, but found himself in the bullpen last year, going 4-2 with a 2.88 ERA in 72 total innings, 45 total games. This is a guy that really strengthens this bullpen, Justin.
I like to move to Tom Gorzolani, because when you look at Tom Gorzolani throughout his career in Major League Baseball with the Pittsburgh Pirates and with the Chicago Cubs and the Nationals also, this guy can pitch both in the bullpen as well as in the pitching rotation, so that's really the big strength for them. I think Gorzolani will fit better in not in the pitching rotation, the bullpen, because I think this team really needs to build their bullpen up, because remember, they don't have Francisco Rodriguez, because remember, he's no longer with the team anymore due to some character issues. I think that could be the prime thing there. But Gorzolani is going to be the setup man for John Axford, and I like this deal a whole lot.
Now, Mike Gonzalez will be the other setup man. Mike Gonzalez has been in the MLB for a long time, was also with the Washington Nationals last year, spent some time with their AAA team coming back from an injury, but overall spent 47 games for this team. He pitched 35 total innings, had a 0-0 record with a 3.03 ERA. Another solid move to add him in. This is a guy who's had sustained success with both the Atlanta Braves and the Pittsburgh Pirates prior to this. He's a veteran bullpen arm. So again, the Brewers strengthen that bullpen. But Justin, the real question is going to be, can we see the John Axford of 2 years ago, who is arguably the best closer in baseball, 46 of 48 saves, a 1.95 ERA, or are we going to see the John Axford of last year, who went 5-8 with a 4.67 ERA, blew 9 saves? That's not good enough, and that's why the Brewers last year were forced to go to K-Rod for a while before going back to Axford. They need the Axford of 2 years ago if they're going to be successful.
I agree. That 5-8 year, that's just not going to cut the cheese for the Milwaukee Brewers. But when you look at it, I think John Axford is going to have a bounce back season. I think he can go back to being the 2011 John Axford, as long as there's the run support also in the ninth inning, or in the 8th and 9th inning. As long as there's runs on the board and John Axford can capitalize on opportunities, I think we can see the John Axford in 2011.
We'll certainly see what happens, Justin. As for your prediction on the Milwaukee Brewers, what are you going with?
Man, I don't know. I think the Brewers can probably make a good run in for third place, but when you look at it, I really like the Pittsburgh Pirates as they're coming up. The Cincinnati Reds have an overall great team. I think the Brewers can make a good run for third as they compete against, the the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs, but you know what? The lack of depth in this team is going to probably end up playing a factor unless they're going to go down in their farm system and use some of their pitchers like Taylor Jungmann, who can also be a potential, a person in the pitching rotation come, the later months of the year. But, depth is going to be the biggest concern for this team. But you know what? I have them going in 4th place. I think that when you look at it, I think the Cardinals are going to squeeze into 3rd, and, the Brewers are just going to have a down year this year.
I see them in 4th place as well, and they won 83 games last year, but they very well, like I said earlier in this video, could have won 77 or 78, and I see them in that 77 to 80 win type team because there's not a ton of certainty in the rotation. There's an extreme lack of depth. I know we are drilling it down your throats, but that's truly what the scenario is. Corey Hart's going to be out. Ryan Braun, who knows what happens with him. Aramis Ramirez is an injury history. You don't know what you're getting out of your closer. It's a team with a lot of questions and not a lot of potential answers, and that is what scares me about this team. I see 77 to 80 wins as they continue to try and kind of rebuild after losing Prince Fielder and get back to the point of being a true contender. That is your Milwaukee Brewers season preview. Justin, tomorrow we will get on to the Tampa Bay Rays, who feature David Price, the defending AL Cy Young Award winner. We will give you their preview tomorrow. For now, I'm Tim Kelly along with Justin Godsey. This is the Real Sports Talk 30 Clubs 30 Preview Special, and we'll see you guys later.